Excuse me, congressional correspondent Kate Bolduan, Democratic strategist Paul Begala, and Republican strategist Alex Castellanos. So, Kate, what is going on? Is this really just a fight over a couple of small-town airports?
Yes, in part, at least ostensively. Sorry, Anderson. This is what's going on. There are two things going on. It has to do with this union issue that you mentioned. Republicans put this a change to union rules and how the federal rules kind of apply to airlines and unionizing there. And they want to change the rules. Democrats clearly are balking at this, and they're opposed to it. That's the long-term funding bill. Then in the short-term extension, Democrats are calling for a clean extension that would just extend it as they have in the past. Republicans are opposing that, and so they're pushing their own extension that has to do with these subsidies for rural airports that Democrats are balking at again and opposing. And Republicans then say that they're protecting wasteful spending that they see. But so it seems like the same finger-pointing that we were seeing in the debt debate is just extending into this, and everyone says the other side is the one holding up this process when the FAA employees are the only ones that are becoming the victims here. And I think a little bit of what's going on here is following this debt debate, there is some serious bruised egos and some resentment on both sides, and so they're really, really digging in here.
Paul Begala, why not just either pass this short-term extension, even if it's not perfect, or you know, have some leadership and actually come up with either a compromise or come up with some sort of a deal?
I have no idea, Anderson. If I had hair, it'd be on fire. This is the kind of thing that makes you crazy. But I have to say, the president did a disservice today to this story, and I think sometimes we in the media do, when he seemed to say that both parties are equally at fault. The president today said, and I'm quoting him, "This is another Washington-inflicted wound on America." Well, no, sir, with all due respect. It's a Republican-inflicted wound on America, and not even all Republicans. A lot of Republicans think this is crazy, too. Kay Bailey Hutchison, the top senator on the Committee of Jurisdiction in the Senate, has already said it's not honorable what the House is doing. So I don't want to paint all Republicans with a brush, but there is a new way of doing business for some in the Republican Party, and it is not the regular order. Even the most mundane issues, like whether we should subsidize air service to Ely, Nevada, now all of a sudden becomes something that's worth shutting down the FAA and putting 74,000 people out of work. It's crazy.
And Alex, $1 billion in taxes are not being collected right now. I mean, $1 billion, if nothing else, shouldn't that be enough to get anyone in Congress who claims to care about the deficit to try to come up with some sort of solution for this?
Oh, you would think, wouldn't you? You kind of want to put them all in an airplane that can't land until they fix this. But, you know, we've just had a big spending debate for, it seemed like, eternity here in Washington on this debt ceiling. And one thing I think Democrats and Republicans can all agree is that if we can stop wasting money we don't have, money we have to borrow, money we have to eventually get our kids to pay, we ought to try to do that. How much should one of these airplane tickets cost from Ely, Nevada to the closest hub? Well, it turns out we're subsidizing each of these tickets from $1,000 to $3,700 each ticket. That seems to be a place we could save some bucks. You could hire a limo, fill it with champagne, and drive each one of these passengers and save money. And we can't even agree on saving that kind of money. Republicans put a bill that would do that on the table. Democrats said no. And you know what Harry Reid did? He did the honorable thing. He said, look, I urge my colleagues to vote for this. Sometimes you have to think about what's best for your country. And Rockefeller and other senators said no. They are holding Harry Reid hostage on this.
So, Paul, I mean, Alex has clearly seen it a completely different way.
Well, look, Senator Reid, Alex is right, he's the Senate Majority Leader. His small town in his state of Ely, Nevada, is one of the towns that's been singled out for this. He sent a letter to Speaker Boehner today, I have a copy of it here, where he says, I will be willing to compromise on the essential air services issue during negotiations on the final bill in order to pass a clean extension. I mean, Reid is doing everything he can do, but just like the debt ceiling, he doesn't have a partner to negotiate with. And this is what bothers me. Again, it's more about process. The Founding Fathers gave us a regular order for resolving these disputes. My goodness, this is not slavery. This is not civil rights. This is whether we should subsidize air travelers in Ely, Nevada. Alex may be right. The Republicans may be right. But it's not worth putting 74,000 people out of work. There's a process. So you extend it for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, then you come back to a committee and a conference committee and you work out these things. They do this
Alex,
every day in
what about
Congress.
just not taking your vacation until this gets done? I mean, I'm not taking a side of whether the Republicans are right in this or the Democrats. I don't know. But you know, I do know that for government to work, people have to make decisions, and whether it's a compromise or one side wins or the other, that's how things get done. And right now, nothing's getting done.
You know, and I think some folks at home are looking at this and are so disgusted with what they're seeing in Washington that next election we could see, I think, one of the biggest rejection of incumbents that we've seen in a long time. It could be vote them all out. Last election, we saw some survey numbers that said if you could vote everybody from both parties out and start over, would you? And it was over 60%. I think it could be higher this time. But on this specific issue, Anderson, you said you couldn't find anything going back 20 years where anybody had tied something like this, you know, a spending reduction to a routine bill. Yes, and that's the problem. We never cut spending on anything. We always push it back to tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes. So we're in a crisis situation where one of these days our kids are going to be empty of tears because they're going to sweat their whole lives to pay debts that we, our parents, are leaving them.
Right, but now we're still pushing it back. We're now pushing it back 5 weeks so that they can take their vacation. It's the vacation thing that, you know, I get this is how Washington works and these are what debates about. I just don't get why they get to adjourn when things are still up.
Senator Reid, in the short term, this could be fixed pretty quickly. I mean, they would just need to come to an agreement. They don't even need to pull all the senators and members of Congress back to Washington necessarily. They have to come to an agreement. Both the House and the Senate have procedural ways to pull this off.
And Kate, President Obama said that might happen this week. Is that likely?
Likely, I would not go that far. I would say that Speaker Boehner issued a statement today, and it did not seem like he was so inclined to be trying to make this agreement. And it's not unheard of for the House Speaker to call them all back in. Nancy Pelosi did that last year when she was Speaker of last summer when she was Speaker of the House. It just doesn't seem like anyone's ready to blink and to make that move at this moment. So it's, you know, the idea of the vacation is frustrating for many people, but they can do this work while they're still on vacation and still going to their, you know, constituency events or whatever. They can get this done, and they can get it done quickly. Right. They just don't want to at the moment.
Kate, Paul, Alex, guys, thank you very much. Let us know what you think. We're on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter. I'm already talking to folks on Twitter about this. There's a lot of anger about this. At Anderson Cooper, that's my Twitter address.